Cinema, the only show that's 3 dimensions away from Beetlejuice being called Scared Sheetless. I'm your host, 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Beetlejuice, released in 1988. Beetlejuice was directed by Tim Burton and was written by Michael McDowell, Warren Scarron, and Larry Wilson. The movie stars Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis, Michael Keaton, Jeffrey Jones, Catherine O'Hara, Winona Ryder. And the movie is essentially a supernatural haunted house-ish movie that's also a comedy. Like, the movie essentially is about a couple in Connecticut that die in a car accident. And so basically they come back to their home and they realize that they're ghosts. And then of course when their house is sold to this fancy New York couple, and they don't like the changes that are being made and everything, and of course there's this guy named Beetlejuice who is a demon, the trickster demon, and he basically offers them a deal saying, I could, if you let me out, I can literally take care of this problem for you. And of course chaos and shenanigans ensue. I will say, this movie, when it first came out, I have a soft spot for this movie, okay? I love Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice 1 is one of my favorite movies out there because I'm a huge fan of Beetlejuice, okay? Like, I love the first Beetlejuice. I watched it on VHS. My aunt used to own this on VHS. I would borrow it from all time watching on VHS. Then, of course, I eventually bought it on DVD, and I watched it over and over and over again. And I used to just love this movie so much. Like, it was just so good movie. And I just remember watching it, and it would come on ABC Family or TBS or TNT, and I would just rewatch it over and over, especially during Halloween time. I loved this movie so freaking much. And this movie, I've just seen it over the years, and I never really talked about this movie, but it is a very good movie. Like, I remember watching it like 6 months ago and not liking it as much, and I was thinking maybe I must have had a bad day or something, because I was just like, it wasn't as good as I remember and everything. But then watching it, I guess the night before, I really enjoyed this movie. Like, I mean, I can understand. It's like, it has a great score by Danny Elfman. Amazing score. Like the score in this movie is the perfect thing in this movie, because when it's creepy, it needs to be creepy. When it's like heartfelt, it needs to be heartfelt. Like, when it's like shocking, it needs to be shocking. I mean, and when it's like funny, it has funny moments. I mean, everything you want in this movie for the score is beautiful. This is one of the best scored movies out there, and this is honestly, I would say, my second or third favorite Tim Burton movie. I will say I really like Sleepy Hollow and Sweeney Todd, but like, this movie is just so damn good. Like, honestly, I would probably say this might be better than Sleepy Hollow. I think this is just so well done. I mean, Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis are great as this couple. Like, I honestly sometimes forget it's Alec Baldwin, because he's like so different than I'm used to, and Gina Davis, like, I always know her from Beetlejuice. I know she's the mom in Stuart Little, and she's done like The Fly and other things like that, but like, I'm just so used to her being in this movie, and I just don't recognize, like, this, her, like, whenever I think of Gina Davis, I think of Beetlejuice. And of course it has Catherine O'Hara, who was the mom, would go on later to be the mom in Home Alone, and this is like one of her first, I would say, movies that, she's in, and it wasn't like a big movie for her. Like, Home Alone obviously was like a bigger movie for her. I think most people think of her, they think of Home Alone. But I always think of her like it's this and Home Alone probably as well. And I think she's really great as a uppy, New York style mom who wants to basically just gut this house. And, I thought that was really well done. She plays it so well, especially, even though, I will say in the third act, she really becomes like basically just a background character, because she really doesn't do nothing, just sits there. Besides, after the Calypso scene, like, she really just doesn't do nothing, really. I will say that Winona Ryder, obviously, is the lead here, I would say, because she, like, is the protagonist. I mean, Adam and, Barbara are the central protagonist. But, like, I would say if there is, like, like a young protagonist, she would be it, because there really are the characters that drive the movie, but, like, I would say Winona Ryder is like that. You always have that movie that has, like, a secondary protagonist. I would say it's her, not even Beetlejuice, because Beetlejuice is only in this movie for 18 minutes, and Beetlejuice really does, when he shows up, he earns the screen time, like, and I like how it builds up like Freddy Krueger, where it builds up to this character, when eventually you see him through, like glimpses and glimmers. I like how it builds this character up to when you finally see him, you get, like, the juice is loose moment, I really like that aspect of it. Like, there are things I love in this movie. Like, I love the Calypso scene, and I love, like, jumping in line at the end. And I also like the graveyard scene, because I always felt that graveyard scene was creepy when they're digging him up, and he goes, yeah! You know, like, that just is so creepy, you know, and everything. But then when he starts talking, it's just like, it's almost, I'm still creeped out by him, but at the same time, it's really funny, especially when he kicks that tree over and says, nice fucking model, honk honk. You know, like, I've done that scene so much time, I got slapped for that scene, you know, saying that scene, because it's so iconic, you know? Well, I can't tell you how many times, like, I've literally said that, like, you know, as a kid, because it's just so iconic. Now, I will say, you know, I do like that, like, there are, like, practical stuff in this movie, and there's occasionally, like, some blue screen, green screen stuff in the movie. I do like that, you know, like, you see, like, this dead world that, you know, and I mean, they could just hint at it, but never show it, but they show it. And I think it's great that, you know, like, it shows you this world of what being undead really is. And I also think that, you know, like, it has, like, even has instructions, and, like, there's a running gag about it reads, like, stereo instructions. And there's even a creepy third act where, like, they're literally dying. Like, you see them, like, it's, like, there's a way, like, there's an idea in this movie about, like, it's death for the dead, you know? Like, that is so creepy. Like, the scene where they're in the hallway and then they see, like, the Lost Souls room. Like, that's so creepy. I always thought, like, man. And then you see that they're becoming that at the end. Oh, man. You know, I really do think it does start to pick up, really, once they go to, like, the, you know, the dead, you know, the undead world. I think that's when it really starts to pick up. But then, you know, and I think that's really where the strong suit of this movie is. I think the first two acts kind of are more boring, like, just the build up. But, like, that's when it really picks up, is once they start crossing over and then they come back, and that's when shenanigans ensues. And once, I think, Beetlejuice, like, the snake scene is really creepy, where he's this giant snake and he's trying to kill the Deets. That is really creepy. I mean, that is just so iffy. You know, and then, of course, once he comes back, you know, and, like, he becomes, like, an amusement wheel, and he kills, like, Robert Goulet and his wife, and that's really great, too. And of course, Otho is really great. He's just a funny sidekick, you know, like, he's, like, the goofy guy. Every fat guy in the movie is a goofy, but he's, like, a sophisticated goofy guy, you know, and I really like it, especially with Beetlejuice, how he basically destroys it ruins him, is basically, he just puts him in a tacky outfit. It's like, and he's like, he was something he would never wear, and he just runs away, you know. I mean, like, stuff like that's really what makes Beetlejuice really fun. And, you know, I really like, you know, like, just, it's a beautiful, well-made movie. I mean, the movie, you can nitpick this movie. Like, you can say, this movie, like, oh, they're loosey-goosey with the handbook rules. It never explained, like, how Beetlejuice, okay, they've said his name 3 times, so does that mean he can freely roam? Or is he only confined to, like, if a human says it? It just, you know, the thing's loosey-goosey, okay? So, really, you know, like, you know, this movie came out in the 80s. It's really easy to pick apart, and you could criticize, like, I mean, I could criticize, like, okay, this doesn't make sense that, you know, like, they're holding they're holding weapons and stuff, like, that they can't see that. Or the fact that maybe, whenever, like, once they did the Calypso, like, who the hell would stay there? I would not stay there. I mean, even if, like, oh yeah, like, because they weren't doing it themselves. I mean, like, most sane people wouldn't, you know. Or if the freaking, if you think about it, what if, like, you know, like, I mean, obviously, like, you know, like, the house is haunted, okay, and only Lydia can see it. But if Otho's reading the handbook, shouldn't he be able to see him too? You know, or why is Otho seeing the handbook if it says for strange people? Or is saying Otho's strange? I mean, also, there's a suicide subplot that really just goes nowhere. I mean, like, literally, like, Lydia wants to die, but then she doesn't want to die, and I'm just like, you know, it's stuff like that where you can nitpick this movie, or, you know, and just, why does Beetlejuice need to marry? Is that a, you know, like, is that a contract clause? I mean, there's stuff you could nitpick in this movie, but, you know, it's fine, because it's a movie. It's not meant to be, it's meant to just be like, you know, and I'm sure if this movie come out now, people would nitpick this movie apart. They would say, oh, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense. But I mean, it's a movie that came out in the 80s. It's a fun movie. It's like, it's a hell of a movie, not to be taken too seriously. Now, you know, I'm sure when the sequel come out, I'm sure people will nitpick that movie to death too, saying, well, it came out so now, so it deserves to be nitpicked, you know. But I'm just, you can enjoy it as is, you know, and I'm gonna enjoy this as is. If I had to give this movie a grade, I would give it a solid A+. Thank you so much.
Michael Keaton is Beetlejuice.
I'm the ghost with the most, babe.